I think James just wanted to prove to y'all that, he is James Harden, and so he can do that, on a nightly basis. It's coming around. Like I said, we had the tough loss against Denver. Everybody's, talking about that, but I still got positivity in this team.
I mean, it's time that we try to start to build something out here and get a streak going the other way.
It's time to try to build something. Well, they had their best game of the season against the Kings. Los Angeles had season highs in points, in field goals, and shooting. James Harden put up a season best 26 points. The Clippers, they had it all going on offense, but don't look now. They've won 5 of their last 7 as we say hello to Kendrick Perkins. Perk, did you buy that this really is the blueprint for what can be for the Clippers last night for them to contend?
Hell no. And I said it earlier today on First Take. What you want me to do? Applaud the fish for swimming? I cannot do that. Here's why, Malika. Okay, the Sacramento Kings were coming off a back-to-back. Okay, were in a brawl fight with the Golden State Warriors. The Clippers were well rested, coming off a horrible loss against the Denver Nuggets. Of course, they were going to come out there and respond. And here's the thing, right? I understand James Harden, he had his best game in the Clippers uniform, but he didn't remind us who he was because we play in the league today where any given night we can see any guy go for 20 plus. We just saw DeAndre Jordan do it to them a couple of nights ago. So again, with the Clippers and when it comes down to James Harden especially, I want to see what happens when it matters the most. I need to see it happen in the postseason. Did they play great basketball, good basketball yesterday? Yes, but they did play a Sacramento team that was fatigued.
Yeah, Malika, when I watch this game, I know it's so easy and important to focus on what James Harden's doing. You're focusing on Paul George's health. You're looking at how is Westbrook handling the role change. But to be honest with you, for the Clippers to do anything this season, it's got to be Kawhi Leonard getting back to the player that he was at the end of last year. And that's what I saw last night. And that's the thing. Kawhi Leonard did not have a good start to this season. It's been covered up by the other stuff going on with the Clippers. That mid-range jump shot that was always going in, it didn't go in as much. His scoring was down. So when you see him play a game like this, where he's lively on those legs, where he looks like his knee is feeling better, and you hear him talk about how he's feeling better playing through back-to-backs, that is what's most important. All the rest of the stuff matters, but none of it is going to be a difference maker unless Kawhi Leonard is an elite player. He was an elite player in this game. If he plays like this, obviously the sky's the limit for them.
To me, it feels like some sort of combination of what you all are saying, because I think it's fair to be like, okay, this is exciting, right? James Harden, maybe this is the potential of what he could be. He has 26 points in this one. We've seen Paul George and Kawhi Leonard play in 17 consecutive games, the most since they've been teammates, but also the most consecutive games that Kawhi Leonard has played since 2017. He's changed teams in that time. He won a championship in that time. Like, that is a long time that we have seen this. But at the same time, there is so much at stake for this team. And just, 3-4 days removed from that terrible loss to Denver, it's sort of like I feel like we're on a little bit of a roller coaster with the Clippers, that until it's when it matters, because the expectations are so high, the bill is so expensive, and the stakes are there, it sort of feels like I don't know what to make of this one, Zach.
Well, here's where it matters. Perk mentioned the playoffs, and let's hit the brakes for a second. The Clippers are 8-9. They got to make the playoffs. And Kawhi Leonard, 14 of 18 last night. The whole thing is built on the notion that he's the best player on the team. Ty Lue said it after they acquired James Harden. This is Kawhi Leonard's team. He has not been the best player on the team this season. And in fact, the degree to which Paul George has been the best player on the team is actually kind of alarming until last night when Kawhi looked like Kawhi in terms of explosion. But look, 2 wins against the Spurs ain't doing anything for me. Rockets, who haven't won a road game, that's not doing much for me. Kings on a back-to-back, that's nice. Their win against Dallas was a good, solid win. You know what I need to see? More good, solid wins. What did Ty Lue say after the game last night? We made quick decisions. We shot catching through threes fast. We attacked closeouts. Now we got to do it again and again and again. 3 agains. So I got to see a lot of agains. Well, one thing I'll say, this starting 5 with Terrence Mann, plus 64 in 126 minutes. That is a monster number.
Here's what you take from last night. I'm going to echo a little bit of what each of these guys are saying because they're all right. Perk's 100% right. Let's call me in March about this team.
Right.
That's when you're really going to be interested in the Clippers and what they look like. And also, I think You take a look at Kawhi Leonard, we're all right. Hey, this is what it needs to look like. My point on the Clippers all along has been Harden doesn't really move the needle for me with this team, because if you believe in the Clippers, there's one reason you do. It's because you believe that Kawhi Leonard is going to be able to stay healthy and play 70 games in the regular season and be ready for 2 months in the postseason. If you believe that, then what you saw last night is this. You can't dismiss this team if Kawhi Leonard looks like that. You just can't. There's too much talent. And even the other role players that they have, Zubac, Terrence Mann, like those guys fit in so well with what they do. They were great last night as well. That's really all that was, because that was James Harden, best version of himself now, reading the right opportunities, when to shoot, when to be a facilitator. Nothing about him did you watch the game and go, what is he doing right now, which is I feel like I've been doing most of the last couple of years. Still, it's all about the postseason with James Harden. We know that. But at least last night, he looked comfortable. They meshed well together. Kawhi looked great. And they're just a reminder, hey, don't dismiss us. If you do, it's at your own peril. But we can't really get serious about this team until after the All-Star break.
Yeah, this is a team that is judged in April, in May, in June. It's not a team that's judged against the Kings on the second night of a back-to-back. But if this is a flash of what's to come versus what we saw against the Denver Nuggets the other day, then hey, maybe we got something.
With the penalty of the second apron, it handicaps you to be on team building and recovering and changing your roster when you're in that level. If you are not competing right or be right there to win a championship, you cannot stay in the second apron. It's not feasibly possible. So this is going to work itself out one way or another. They're either going to be that type of team or they're going to be forced to make major changes because they can't stay up there under the new current rules.
Perk.
One major piece has already left the dynasty already. And he's actually working over here with the network with us, and that's Bob Myers, okay? He's a big part of that culture. So when I think about how unorganized they look, I don't know, like I'm not willing to sit up here and say that the Warriors are going to turn this around. Andrew Wiggins right now, he looks not interested in the game of basketball. Yes, he will show up occasionally like he did against the Kings, but his love, his joy, I'm starting to question that now. He's had 2 big contracts. He got his championship ring. Like, I don't see that same fire that I saw when he first got to the Golden State Warriors, and that's another problem.
Well, look, when you talk about disorganized, they're throwing the ball all over the gym and they're fouling everybody who moves. And those two things are baked into the way they play and have been for years, but are also correctable with like a little bit of attention to detail. And I think when you hear them talk about frustration and finding ourselves, that's the kind of stuff they're talking about. Those 2 turnovers they had at the end of that Kings game are awful turnovers. They're above that, or they should be above that, and those things are correctable. But look, we use the word dynasty a lot. Can I just be the turd in the punch bowl for a second?
Zach,
yes, Perk?
Zach, Legs, Malika, Wendy, can I ask y'all a question?
Yes, sure, Perk.
Watching the Warriors game, have I been the only person to have watched that they're getting called for more illegal screens than any other team in the league? That little hip butt screen, they're getting called for that now. Well, back in 2 years ago, they was getting away with that. Like, yeah, you're right. You have to switch that up. Like, teams have caught on to that. Am I the only person noticing that? That's a big part of their offense.
To answer your question, they are well aware of that internally and are kind of thinking about why is that happening, and is it because for whatever reason, roster turnover, age, whatever, we're not quite as smooth and as good at running all the beautiful game stuff that's dominated the league for 10 years. It's a discussion they're having, but those kind of like, you're talking about making big structural changes to an offense that has worked and is built around an all-time great player, the greatest movement shooter ever.
That is still playing at that caliber that Tim says, okay, like there are bits and pieces here that make you still believe in that term that we were talking about, dynasty, whatever the case may be here.
And by the way, is still one of the most difficult offenses to defend, period, because of the number of reads and communications you have to make defensively with all of those screens. Like no team in the league has more screens set by their guards than the Golden State Warriors. I mean, guard set screens, you force an awful lot of communication, and then you rely on teams to make mistakes. And now, difference is when teams would make mistakes in the past, it ends up in the hands of guys that are shooting at that rate. And that ball is not going into that extent. So now you start to, the offense looks different. It's still an offense that's incredibly difficult to defend. They're just not getting the result at the end of these possessions that they are used to. Ironically, to your point about the turnovers too, every single person you talked to in the preseason about getting Chris Paul, that was the reason. We can't throw the ball over to Jim.
We need to get
ball
smarter.
Security, smarter, more quality possessions, right? And yet you look at when they're playing poorly, it looks the same way. And Steve Kerr said it before the season, we aren't good enough anymore to throw the ball over the Jim and overcome it with our firepower. He said that out of his own mouth. So he knows right there. They've taken a little bit of a step back overall because of the age and decline and not having the depth. So they've got to be better with the ball. And when they're not, it looks just like it has in the past several years.
That's been true since the second Kevin Durant walked out the door. And that's what I was going to say before. Is this a dynasty? Maybe it's a dynasty, depending on your definition of a dynasty. Where they had that dude, it was a foregone conclusion. If they were healthy, they could not be beat. They won 2 titles with him and then 2 titles separated by a lot of years without. And we can quibble about the definition, but that's a name we don't bring up anymore. They were unbeatable with him. And since he left, that's when their margin for error went away.
We can nickel and dime, like you talked about. There's a couple of teams in the NBA that when they win, they go on a 5-game winning streak. The world is great. When they go on a 5-game losing streak, the world is ending. The Clippers and the Warriors, they face off tonight. It feels like a game where, once again, you can learn a whole bunch about who both of these teams are. But in the West, that margin, it just feels like the Warriors need to figure it out and figure it out fast because they just do not have this type of time with the age, the lacking in firepower that you're talking about to waste.
NBA,